So according to Games Workshop, Cursed City is gone, and it might not be coming back. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about a Games Workshop release that seems to have gone incredibly badly wrong. As you'll know, I normally talk about 40k things on the channel, but with such a major Games Workshop release kind of being ruined altogether, I thought it was worth discussion. So I'm sure if you check Warhammer community at all regularly, you'll likely be fully aware that Cursed City is one of their Warhammer Quest fantasy board games, and while generally I'm fairly entrenched in the 40k setting, I have to admit just the scope of the release and the miniatures within it look really quite cool. A collection of really quite characterful heroes, really disturbing villains, and it just seems like a really quality well-made game, from the quantity and scope of the miniatures that you get, all the way to all the backstory, lore, and gameplay behind it. The Warhammer community team have been going kind of nuts over this for the last few weeks, giving us almost daily previews as to the new characters, some of the things that they can do in the game, and building up the hype to fever pitch for when it finally releases. Generally it's billed as a similar style to Blackstone Fortress, that gave us a decent sized base game with a wide variety of Imperial and Xenos heroes, and then they released a whole bunch of expansions, things like that Zote, the Chaos Ogryn and Commissar, and those decent sized Guardian drones. It really was its own self-contained little gaming system. It does sound like Blackstone Fortress's main release cycle has ended, but the box game itself has very much been a permanent staple in Games Workshop. You could buy it for the entire time, and it's still available now. Cursed City, on the other hand, is perhaps cursed for a reason, and it seems that it might not be the case for this excellent-looking game. With all the hype, it's perhaps not unexpected that the initial release run sold out very quickly. It happened with Indomitus when they printed a ton of copies of that, and it seems to have happened with this. The curious thing is that unlike Blackstone Fortress or even Indomitus, it hasn't just been marked as out of stock online, but it's been entirely removed from the Games Workshop web store. If I search Cursed City on Games Workshop in the UK at least, it doesn't come up with any results aside from an out of stock novel. It certainly implies that it's not going to be coming back imminently, and Games Workshop has been confirming this. It seems that if it's going to be coming back, it'll be more as a big announced reprint, as opposed to having the more normal release for a product where it's just available on the web store, it's out of stock for a bit, and then it comes back in stock when they get more copies. I feel like what Games Workshop is doing after this release, though, is just a bit more interesting and maybe a little bit more troubling than what they did with Indomitus. Literally any of the promotional material that they had for Cursed City being released has just been deleted off their website. They hyped up Be'lakor, who also came out this weekend. He also went out of stock, but they didn't mention anything about the Cursed City board game. As we all know, as any business would be, Games Workshop certainly aren't against promoting their own products on their own website. As you'd expect, there's been quite a bit of community outcry for the people who didn't manage to get a box, and Warhammer community do seem to have answered at least a few of them with this Twitter response, saying that Cursed City is sold out on Games Workshop, we're not expecting it to return online. It does seem to be quite a definite answer, that one. They're not just not expecting it to return online soon, they're just not expecting it to return online at all. They say that many copies have been sent to local stores across the world. Please check with your local Warhammer store or independent retailer to see if they can help. I guess that probably is the best strategy if you want one, but still it's hardly a very reliable one. To me, and to quite a lot of other people on the internet who have already commented on this, it kind of appears that they've decided to change their mind as to whether or not this is a full game system that they're going to go on releasing and supporting, or whether it was just supposed to be a one-hit wonder. It's there, it's gone, then sadly we have to forget about it. The thing is, with every side up to this point, it does appear that they're massively promoting this as something that was supposed to be ongoing. They've created a novel for it, a full in-depth website where you can sign up for a newsletter about it, lots of references within the actual box itself as to further expansions or content coming for the Cursed City, and of course absolutely tons of promotion on the Warhammer community side that have been going on for weeks and weeks. I feel like if it was just supposed to be a 1 week thing, we might have got maybe a week or so's previews at max, but this has been going on for longer than that. Maybe the most interesting question is to why they actually changed their mind after billing it as one thing and then perhaps trying to release it as another. So far Games Workshop hasn't really said exactly why they've decided to change it like this. I mean, it's not too hard to guess at the moment. COVID's ruining their supply chains, and they're already at least 2 months behind in their Codex release schedule from 9th edition, so I'm sure that's not helping. But I feel that this might have been a bit different. I mean, with things like the Drukhari and Dark Angels codexes, they still came and they're still permanent, they were just delayed a bit. Barring any major announcements from Games Workshop, it doesn't sound like this is just delayed, it sounds like it's already gone. I've seen a couple of other commenters and people on Reddit discussing whether it might be a Brexit thing, saying it might be to do with new tariffs on where the actual box is manufactured. I'm certainly not too hot on the details of that myself, but it seems believable. And I guess we've also had the Suez Canal disruption recently, though again I would have expected that to result in a delay of the release, not a cancellation of future releases if they were ever going to happen. It really would be quite interesting if they were a bit more transparent and told us what was actually going on, but I suspect as a business they're probably not likely to do that, as they don't really want to highlight their failings and maybe make potential investors think twice about investing in them in the stock markets. In any case, I'm sure this is a massive disappointment for any of the people who weren't able to get their hands on a copy. I suspect there were fewer people disappointed in this compared with the Indomitus release, but it still really is a pretty major product from Games Workshop and really not one that they wanted to mess up. It just seems quite sad to me that a game that they've invested so much in, made really quite a cool setting, awesome miniatures, and a good game on top of that, and now because of whatever supply line disruption they've had, a lot of people aren't going to get it, and I'm sure they themselves are very unhappy not to be able to sell us loads of boxes of this thing. I'm sure they will most gladly pocket the profits. Just as a precedent though, I think that these issues with Cursed City really just aren't good for them long term when they do try and release more specialist games like this. One of the things that has kept me playing 40k far more than any of their other minor releases is that I'm just a bit wary as to how long they're going to support them. They've been doing a fair bit better at this recently, with games like Kill Team and Necromunda having an actual bit of staying power, and they're actually keeping on supporting them with new releases. But when something like this happens with one of their specialist games, it does make me feel grateful a bit more for sticking more solidly with one of their main products rather than a niche one. At least we can be fairly guaranteed that things like 40k and Age of Sigmar aren't going to get surprisingly cancelled anytime soon. Anyway, I'm sure we might hear something from them later in the day, at least some sort of statement. The best news would certainly be for them to issue a rerun, so I certainly hope that that's what we hear. I'll try and update with a pinned comment if I do hear any further news after I record this. In any case, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below, particularly if there's anything that I've missed, or if you've heard any more details that I've left out. If you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to keep up with news of Games Workshop's releases as they come out or don't come out, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I do try and post videos centered around 40k pretty much every day. Finally, if you'd like to help support the channel, I would just like to mention my Element Games affiliate link down in the video description below, where if you were thinking about picking up something that Games Workshop was happy to sell you, then they can give you some decent discounts on it within the UK. If you're going to order in some Warhammer, click on the link on the video description. You can order through Element Games for 10 to 20% off. It doesn't cost you any more, and a small amount goes to help support the channel. Can just be a way to help keep Auspex Tactics going if you were going to buy something anyway. There's also a very similar Amazon link for those who live in the USA and Canada. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.